You made a comment that this last jail stint that you did, you compared it to a slave warehouse.
Yeah, that's what a jail is. It's a slave warehouse.
Okay, explain that.
It's a warehouse for slaves. It's exactly what it is. Most of the people that are inmates down there brought it on themselves. 97.5% of the people in American penitentiaries pled guilty and 85% confessed. Less than 3% of those who are in the jails got found guilty at trial. So most of what's down there is just cannibalistic behavior by people who have inefficient training, lack of training, no education, no goals, no upbringing, no home training. And it's a function of the system now to get rid of surplus labor. Labor is a commodity like wheat, corn, cotton, rye, beef, pork, poultry. And when you get a glut, the prices drop. They don't want a Timothy McVeigh to come up again and blow up another Oklahoma City courthouse. So they do three things to control the commodity glut. One, you cut back production. Two, subsidize the would-be producer. And three, you store the surplus. In this case, the surplus is in a jail cell instead of a grain silo. The subsidy is the welfare check. And when the kids bang out, drug out, drop out, develop inappropriate attitudes, outlooks, get pregnant too early, too often, and have no education or training, and have nothing that makes them viable for the job market, they soon turn to criminal activity. They get a felony conviction. They can no longer vote, and they're permanently unemployable. So you've taken them out of the job market, so Archie Bunker is not going to get too badly upset because he still has some kind of job, no, not the one that he grew up expecting. So it's a vicious cycle, and we don't have anything in place in this country to address that. We don't even have any legislation in place in the recent decade to put people back to work after what is in actuality almost a depression. So it's getting pretty bad, and when the country has a lot of stress as it does now, guess who's the first to be scapegoated, even if only vicariously?
Right, the poor people.
Poor people, particularly readily identifiable poor people. That's driving that engine that has produced Black Lives Matter. You see, there's stress out there, and some of the things we do puts us in a position where we become easy targets for this kind of thing. So when we start thinking Black Lives Matter, we do those things so that all lives matter, and we get in a better position to take care of our own situation. We've got too many situations like Ferguson, where the old minority is now the majority, but it doesn't realize it, and the old majority doesn't realize it's the minority. And you've got a preponderance of African American people with no African American political involvement. And that's bad. We've got that in Memphis. We've got a situation here where we've got 5 African Americans running for mayor and 1 conservative white, and it looks like he's going to wind up winning. We had a congressional seat that was held by somebody African American, that's the Fords, Harold Sr. and Jr., and then when Jr. ran for U.S. Senator and resigned, we had 14 blacks in the race and 1 white, and he won. So we do it to ourselves by some selfish, egotistical things, too many half-broke African American politicians trying to get elected to positions they aren't really able to handle, and that they're looking at as a source of income supplement, which causes them to become ineffective, or else they've been involved in petty venality and they get blackmailed and controlled. It's bad. African Americans had a big chance over the last 5 decades, but I think we frittered a lot of it away by selecting leadership that is unaggressive, passive, and lacking in cojones.
It's a pretty big statement right there.
It is, but it's our thing that we're losing. The window of opportunity is swiftly closing. W.E.B. Du Bois 100 years ago said the problem of the 21st century, well, the 20th century was going to be the color line, and the solution was for the top 10% of the race to bootstrap itself and the rest of the race up. But we had that for a number of years, but now those who would bootstrap become those who are pulling us back down because they've got side deals that are selfish.
So you feel that the richest 10% of African Americans have been bought out?
It's not richest 10%. Du Bois was talking about the intelligentsia, the intellectual, those who were learned and who understood. Too often what's happened now is they're just about their careers and not about their social and political and cultural obligations, which they don't see as that now.
I mean, this is definitely true on the hip hop side of things, because this is one of the things that we talked about a lot. When you remember the 90s, you had not only Tupac, but you had a lot of people like Public Enemy and Paris and Poor Righteous Teachers, and there was a definite political piece of hip hop which was the mainstream. Whereas when you look at hip hop today, you don't see very much of that. You see little spatterings here and there, but there's no strong artist who's actually pushing the political agenda in hip hop at all.
Well, no, there's not. And one of the problems that some of them tell me is that the consumer just doesn't want to buy that kind of thing. Now, even Tupac, Biggie Smalls, and all of that, their political statements were very small. And there is a problem with current rap in that it is popular because masculinity has been so downplayed in this country and in the Western world that the male youth look for anything that looks masculine. And you get what looks to be overt masculinity, say in gangsta, hip-hop, rap video, but it's not. It's reflective of, let's take a kid with true street cred. He's 17, his mama is 29 or 30, and his grandmother is 43, and in a hot July situation, you find them with booty shorts on and a knit halter and everything, hanging out with a 40 ounce in one hand and a smoke in the other. And that's their vision of adulthood. They get taught from day one that they're supposed to find somebody of the opposite sex to take care of them and exploit. And it's, yo, man, like I got 4 ladies take good care of me. 2 got a job, 1 get a crazy check, and the other one get a AFDC. They takes care of me. And it's not a masculine orientation about being the protector, the director, the person responsible for order, economy, and safety in the community. It's something else. And some women, for example, not all, but they talk about this sexual fantasy, male dominance that's in rap video where you've got the scantily clad women in the background bouncing around, gyrating sexually. It's not a sexual fantasy, because if you look at the mothers, the aunts, the grandmothers, and the girlfriends thereof, they look just like what you see on the video, but that's what the kids are surrounded by, but they just don't look as good. So that's their June Cleaver image rather than their sexual fantasy image, and it also says a whole lot psychologically about what's going on in somebody's head when that's the case. I don't want to get into it now, but it's complex. But this society over the last 45 years has done a lot to devalue masculinity. Now, I saw it happening in the late 60s when the Vietnam War was at its height and people were running around saying man is the reason we have wars, and war is a man thing, so you need to change the way boys are raised to men. Instead of being uptight and under self-control, they need to learn to emote, to shy, to cry, to shout, to let it all hang out. and let their emotions float. Well, we get that, but it's not a good result, and you can see that in the inner city where order has broken down.
That's interesting because that's one of the things that we actually talk about on Vlad TV. We talk about how there is a feminization of particularly black men that's happening in music right now.
Yeah, it is. Look at them. They got the microphone. They look like they're trying to perform fellatio on something. This man, take that microphone out your mouth. It looks strange, boy. Hold that thing off at a distance and act like you a man instead of you have. I mean, it's okay, you know. If you want to be gay, go right ahead. But I mean, everybody's not gay, so give us a few masculine images. Look at the commercials. Do you see a masculine-looking man on a commercial these days? Particularly if they are black. Look at what they've done to action and adventure. You see them patting each other on the behinds, kissing each other on the lips. It's like, okay, fine. The gays got their rights to do what they want to do, but let's have some masculine imagery here. You see, it's not there. It's been taken away. And when you have a mass media thing, that's what the youth look to guide themselves. White kids used to look at John Wayne and Clint Eastwood, and we'd look at our corresponding folk, but nowadays, you know, they're all simpering and walking around fluttering and everything, and you don't see anything to the contrary. Let's let the pendulum swing back to being neutral. How about some of each, you know?
Well, a few years ago, Kanye West did a concert where he wore a skirt, which kind of like a kilt. And that was considered a big deal in the community. But fast forward to 2015, one of the biggest artists out there is Young Thug, who in an interview recently said that 90% of his clothing is women's clothing. And he's been known to wear dresses and skirts and, you know, stuff like that.
Why don't he just come on out the closet? It's the 21st century. They ain't gonna hurt him. Be honest about it. These women are worried about down low people right now. They don't want to catch anything. Not saying that there is a cornering of the market on catching something that way, but just come on out. What Caitlyn did it.
Yeah.
You know, be real.
Most people that come out are celebrated, if you look at it.
I know. Now, how about celebrating somebody who did a manly thing, you know? There are a few.
Yeah, I feel you. It's a different place. But it's interesting how you said how it was started after the Vietnam War in terms of blaming males for the wars and altering the way that they were raised. You feel that's the actual start of it?
They had unisex children's clothing, unisex child rearing, no playing with cap guns, water pistols, no cowboys and Indians, no soldier games. Boys and girls wore the same kind of hair. I remember you could go to a picnic, a business would give or a church would give, and you could be looking straight ahead and you could hear kids behind you. You could tell the girls and boys because the girls screamed and the boys yelled. Now you go someplace you can't tell because boys and girls are all screaming in a shrill fashion. Boys are pampered. We're apex predators. Our job is to be expendable and protect the resources, women and children, but we don't look at it that way now.
Do you feel that there is a certain fear of masculine black men in America?
Yes.
So they try to push a feminine black man so they could deal with him a little easier?
The nastiest letter I ever got in my life was November 14th, 1998. I had the show, and 23 women, lesbians, that's the way they characterized themselves, said they were offended at having to work with a straight black male when there were so many nice homosexual men to work with. They objected to the idea that I had bass in my voice, I was stern. They said it was just unacceptable that I was polite and opened doors for the ladies. they thought that was just hideous. So, I mean, I'm not going to stop opening doors because I'm a man. I'm not going to stop stepping forward in response to a woman who's in trouble or in distress. That's why I got the 5-day sentence down at juvenile court. But I'm a man. But some people don't like that.
So what ultimately happened?
Well, what happened was they got called in by human resources, and they got the opportunity to attend a week's worth of classes in federal equal employment opportunity law because they were discriminating against me. And I was the star of the show. But see, if we're going to play this game of equality, it goes both ways. There's fundamental fairness. And, you know, we've got this thing in America right now. There are 5 things that are holding us back. 2,000 years ago, Julius Caesar said, give them bread and circuses, or feed them and entertain them, and the mob won't care what happens. Well, people look like they're getting fed pretty well, and there are all kinds of entertainments, whether you're looking at Tyler Perry and Housewives and this stuff, or you're a guy sitting in front of a TV set all day long, every day of the weekend, watching NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball or something, and you aren't privy to what's going on around you. Then you've got what Hitler said, Goebbels actually, his propaganda minister, and that was tell a lie long enough and loud enough and you can get anybody to believe it. And then Lincoln came in there with a truth, and it was you can fool most of the people most of the time, some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. And we have to rely on his caveat, the last part of it. And then Machiavelli spoke another truth about 500 years ago. He said, "O prince, you can vest the worst oppressions upon your subjects, and they will tolerate it readily if you give them a chance, however slight, of becoming part of the oppressing classes." So you see people with 4 teeth missing in the front of their mouth and obviously sick, 73 years old, talking about the evils of creeping socialism and subsidized medicine. You know, they think they're going to become millionaires and win the lottery in the next 4 months. And then you've got this other thing, the 5th element that comes in, where people are encouraged to be irresponsible because it's fun. Everything is supposed to be about fun, enjoyment. Nobody's supposed to be made to feel guilty. Nobody has any obligations except to whatever makes you feel good, which is a wrong thing. So those 5 elements have crept in, and they have disrupted this society, which is no longer one driven by principle, obligation, honor, accountability, duty, and such like, but just, I want to feel good. Even the military is getting it wrong. Be all you can be is not correct. It should be all you should be. You know, your obligations stand in there. We've gotten away from it. I remember when I was a kid, you'd always hear, act like a man, act like a young lady. You have an obligation. Stand up for what's right. Be counted. And nowadays, you don't hear that at all. You've got this thing right now where parents, teachers, faculty, and the police are supposed to stop bullies. So they want to send 8-year-olds to juvenile courts. And if a child stands up to a bully, everybody gets thrown out. And that's not the way the world was designed to work. Take a look at, if you ever see it again, an old movie, a not so old movie, Back to the Future, McFly. Their first go around, he's a punk, he's bullied by the high school bully, and he's a flunky. His son goes back in time, coaxes him to stand up, and he knocks his bully out. And when the boy gets back to the present, then guess what? The bully's working for dad, and dad's the boss. total different guy than the one that never stood up to the bully. So those are the things that are inconvenient truths about reality. We don't like to deal with it. Of course, we have so little man training in our neighborhoods that kids pop caps on each other instead of dealing with the manly art of self-defense and going toe-to-toe when somebody get a behind whooping, but shaking hands and going and moving on. You see, we're totally out of whack with reality now.
Nowadays, they want me to be offbeat again. They like, oh, Silk, you be old Silk, you know what I'm saying? But I think I have my own style, which I don't think is right or wrong. So, and if you go back and listen, like I had a chance to listen to my own music. I'm like, wow, I was pretty good.
But he gonna be back soon, you know what I mean? That's my brother. He just, you know what I'm saying, going through it. So, you know what I mean? So we gonna be back strong. We're gonna be back 3 strong right now, but we keeping it going.